Glenn Hammond Curtis was a true pioneer in both aviation and motorcycle engineering. He was one of the key figures of the early 20th century. Being absolutely fearless and uncompromising, he installed an engine of his own design into a reinforced bicycle frame and rode it so fast that his record could not be officially broken for 23 years. And all of this was done over 100 years ago, at a time when the fastest means of transportation were trains. This is the story of the only motorcyclist in the world who holds the title of absolute speed record. The famous Land V8 prototype was practically equipped with a prototype of an aircraft engine. Curtis realized that the motorcycle that would define his future motorcycle career and overshadow all achievements in that field had to have a V8. In response to several requests from early aviation experimenters, Curtis developed his first V8 engine. He then asks his team to build a motorcycle frame strong enough to withstand this engine and plans to see how fast he can accelerate. I remind you that all of this happened more than 100 years ago. People were just beginning to explore the airspace, and no one was even thinking about land speed records. At that time, the fastest things on Earth were trains no one thought about it. Except for Glenn Curtis. His ultralight V8 for its time had a monstrous displacement of 4.4 liters. It featured air cooling, a 90-degree cylinder bank angle, and an almost square ratio, meaning the diameter and stroke of the piston were nearly equal. The power of this machine reached 40 horsepower. At that time, Harleys and Indians were just bicycles with engines producing 2 horsepower. A huge 4-liter V8 and a steel frame. That's it. Oh yes, there was also a seat. No gearbox, no clutch. The drive was simply achieved through a drive shaft from the crankshaft, as at that time no belt or chain could handle such power. There was also no exhaust system. One can only imagine how loudly this beast roared. By the way, there were no brakes either. On January 23, 1907, on Ormond Beach, Florida, Curtis mounted this monster wearing only a leather suit, goggles, and a cap. At that time, there were no helmets, just as there were no brakes. People also believed that at such speeds, a person simply wouldn't be able to breathe. On that day, Glenn Hammond Curtis traveled along a 4-kilometer stretch of sand and reached an astonishing speed of 218 kilometers per hour. Contrary to popular belief, he did not suffocate. To better understand how fast this was, it is important to know that all previous speed records were set by trains, and airplanes were just beginning to fly. To this day, it remains the only motorcycle in the world that held the absolute speed record. In other words, there was absolutely nothing on Earth that was faster at that time. Just think about it. Officially, Glenn Hammond Curtis's motorcycle record would be broken only 23 years later by Joseph Wright in August 1930. And production motorcycles would only learn to reach such speeds by the early 1970s. Glenn Curtis, to put it in the language of a sportsman, left undefeated. He died in the same year, 1930, a month before the new official record. The only downside to this story is the fact that this record was not officially registered. Since it was necessary to travel in both directions to set the record, during the second run, the motorcycle's drive shaft failed to withstand the pressure and broke apart at a speed of 90 kilometers per hour. But this did not stop the newspapers from dubbing Glenn Hammond Curtis the fastest man on the planet and forever etching his name in history under the nickname Hill Rider for his otherworldly bravery. Curtis will continue to produce motorcycles for a while longer before fully transitioning to aviation, where he will make an even greater contribution. This may overshadow his remarkable motorcycle history. Nevertheless, his achievements remain true landmarks from the early, frightening, and dangerous days of the sport.